attending for the first time. I did notice a couple of new names on our list. Please save your questions for the Q&A periods, or if you have something that needs immediate attention, use the chat feature and publicly send a chat message to everyone. We are recording this session to later post on the Odo website for your review. We also want to encourage input from all audience members during this meeting and seek a diverse stakeholder panel to hear various positions. Building Codes Divisions Mark Heiser and Kelly Thomas will lead off the discussion about rulemaking. The Rebuilding Task Force and efficiency standards will be discussed by Blake Shalide, if Blake is with us at that point in time. So with that, Mark, are you ready to discuss rulemaking, the update?
Yes, thank you, Roger. Everyone, Mark Heiser with Building Codes Division, State of Oregon. Kelly Thomas is also with us today, but I'm going to go over a quick update on some of the rulemaking that has been happening at the division, and wanted to do a quick update on the residential energy code adoption rules. And with that, we're going to get some audience participation. How many people received the notification about the rulemaking for the residential code? There are going to be 5 different rules that are coming up on, let's see here, June 22nd at 3 p.m. for the energy rules. Could people like raise your hand in their little chat boxes, see if people are aware of this? I see a couple here. So if you had signed up on our website for getting notices, they are available. If you would like to receive or have me email you a link, or just forward the notice to you, I'd be happy to do that. I believe at the end, I think we can have some, I think we have some of the email addresses at the end. So if not, you can either send it myself or Roger, and I can see about getting that forwarded to you. So yes, let's see here, June 22nd at 3 p.m. we will be going over the rules. What happens on that date is that additional comments will be taken by BCD staff about the code adoption rules that have been and gone through the boards. Written comments will be allowed to be received through June 25th. So letting people know that they can, even after the hearing, there's additional time to put in comments. Those will be reviewed by the division and see whether we are going to move forward with adoption of the rules. So that's an update from Building Codes Division. So and we'll ask everybody to lower hands now, unless you want to have a question. Because I don't have the ability to do the draw. So so that's it for the rules from the Building Codes Division side. I think we can turn it over to Blake, and if you'd like to discuss about any of the rulemaking happening on the Odo side of things. Thank you.
Yeah, Blake is here. So are you ready, Blake?
I am, Roger. Thanks.
You betcha.
Yeah, and I'll just give a quick update. We don't have a lot of efficiency standards rulemaking going on, but the one that is in process now and actually just finalized is our rulemaking for demand response capable water heaters. And that rulemaking, the standard was already set through previous rulemaking and legislation, but our current effort was to essentially delay and postpone the standard by 1 year. It would have gone into effect on July 1st of this year, and we've postponed that to July 1st of 2023 to respond to supply chain and market constraint issues that are still ongoing. And this represents the second of the postponements that we're able to do as an agency administratively, and we push it out for 1 year, and that kind of maximizes our ability to postpone. So I think our rulemaking coordinator actually filed those rules last night, so those will go into effect here by the 1st of next month, and it will push, like I said, that effective date out 1 year. So If there's any questions on that, happy to answer it. But that was a relatively straightforward rulemaking that we just completed.
Any
And
questions?
then the only other one that we, oh, what's that, Roger?
Well, I was just wanting to see if anybody had any questions about that piece that you just discussed.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Doesn't look like it.
And then the only other efficiency standards activity that I'll mention that we haven't started yet, but we will start maybe by the next time this group meets, will be to implement the standards for spray sprinkler bodies and the legislation that came out of this past legislative session. And that's just something that we'll have to do to do our part of the administrative rulemaking to implement that standard. And we'll probably start that sometime in the late summer. Looking forward to completion by the end of the year. So. Oh, and Roger's got the slide up. So we held the public hearing on our water heater pushback last week on the 8th, and received a few comments. So thanks to those that participated, and thanks to those that commented. Always helpful.
Blake, did you want to give the group a little update too on the rebuilding task force? Can you speak to that at all?
Sure, I can. Yeah, it won't be much, other than just encouraging folks to tune in if you're interested. There's actually a meeting of that task force later today at 3 o'clock. And that's all up and available on the Oregon Legislative Information System, OLIS website, where you can view that and view the task force activity, view the past meetings, monitor live the current meetings, and look at all the other associated work that's going on with that task force. So our agency is not on the task force. None of the agencies are, but we are tasked with supporting and assisting the task force as requested. So we've made a presentation to them about efficiency standards. I know the Building Codes Division gave a presentation on kind of the code status and history in Oregon. Other agencies, DEQ and I believe OHA, have also presented. So our agencies are supporting that task force as requested. I know we have some members of that task force on the call today too. So
Yeah, thanks, Blake. There may be some people online right now that don't have any idea what the rebuilding task force is. And can you speak to that, Blake, a little bit as far as whether it's about new construction or existing buildings, that sort of thing? What Senate bill it came from, that kind of thing?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. So this rebuild, it's called the Rebuild Task Force, but it stands for Resilient and Efficient Building Task Force, and it came out of a Senate bill during the previous legislative session that originally started out as kind of a reach code bill, but it ended up being modified and kind of changing into this broader look at decarbonization and energy efficiency in the building sector, and not just new construction, but for existing buildings too. And the task force is generally tasked with looking at opportunities and policy strategies for decarbonization in the building sector toward potential proposition of new policies and new legislation for a future session, and how the state can help use the building sector to meet its overall greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals.
Any questions for Blake about the rebuilding task force? That was a good description, Blake. Sorry to put you on the spot, but that was really concise. Yeah, look at that. Matt Tidwell says, perfect. Well, thanks, everybody. I think we'll move along to the next update. That's the Oregon Residential Energy Code. Back to Mark Heiser.
Thanks, Roger. Sorry, I had to unmute to make sure we had this correct. So on the Oregon Residential Energy Code, we are beginning the adoption process shortly for the 2023 Oregon Residential Specialty Code. So that's the whole book, sort of a update using the latest International Residential Code for most of the building provisions, and of course previous Oregon amendments. That's going to be the starting point for most of the residential code. However, looking at the timeline, we're looking somewhere around July 1st and July 4th. Look for the expected announcement for the 45-day proposal period. That will be for the entire code book, As part of that, the division for Chapter 11, the Energy Code, that's why we're all here talking about this today, we're going to have a baseline proposal for the 2023 residential code. Of course, the division was under directive to meet zero energy ready home equivalency. That's the 2017 version 0.6. We had done previous work with the DOE's ZERH program folks, getting feedback from Sam Rashkin and others as to what really what that equivalency could look like. We will have a baseline. Here are the proposed revisions to the 2021 residential code, and that will be the starting point for any proposals to be put in during the 45-day proposal period. Again, at least the ZERH equivalency is what we're looking to get to. We will have inputs posted on the website that can be used with proposals. Of course, we're going to look at what the energy savings are, and also, costs, looking at that as well. We're going to try and use the new rules as close or come as close as possible to using them, although it will be 90 days before they're actually officially enforced, but that's going to be the baseline for proposals for this year. So we will then be sending, of course, we have University of Oregon doing some additional analysis to make sure where the old code was, what the target is for the new code, so that everyone who is doing a proposal can sort of do an apples to apples, sort of look at what proposals do come in, so everyone can analyze and repeat other people's work. So the next steps, of course, are to look for the upcoming announcement that begins the proposal period. Again, either Friday the 1st or I believe it's the 5th, I think it's Tuesday, would be the date to look for that starting baseline point. We will try and have all of the when the announcement goes out, we will have the information available, such as the baseline written document, as well as some of the baseline inputs that you would be using for doing any energy analysis.
Any questions for Mark?
And do want to let everyone know that this is for the intent of getting this out to hopefully be an April 2023 code. Of course, depending on publication delays and the like, it might be June 1, and then with a grace period between that allows for use of the old code or the new code. And probably by October of 2023, the new energy provisions will be mandatory. So it sounds like no codes or no questions or comments about residential. Be happy to talk about.
I had a question. I had my
Okay.
hand raised.
Oh, thank you.
This is David Heslom from Earth Vantage, and the question I had, Mark, was in looking at the materials that have been shared previously, I wasn't sure on the cost information that BCD was going to be providing. Are you going to be providing ground rules for how a proposer would establish the costs of measures, or were you going to try and actually provide the costs that a proposer should use?
We would be providing sort of a baseline, the US DOE federal building is sort of the baseline. So we're looking at same square footage, and same square footage would be sort of the starting point. And then there's a baseline home. So you're noting what was, so that you can analyze what went in, what went out. So sometimes it's adding new, sometimes there's stuff taken out, replacement put back in, but some general guidelines on that so that people know. It's more giving the background information so that if someone says, well, we took out 200 square feet of window when actually there's only 100 square feet of window involved. So that people can look
All
at the
right.
numbers and compare them properly.
And then,
Well,
but for instance, if someone, just as a follow-up, if someone were to say, oh, we should increase insulation levels, and our estimate for the increased cost of increasing that particular insulation level is, whatever, 10 cents a square foot or something, what you're putting forward would be the rules of how the proposer substantiates that 10 cent per square foot cost increase, so that's how people are doing it on an apples to apples basis.
Yes, and then if you're saying this is how much, this is the wall square footage area that, let's say wall cavity insulation, here's how much, or total square footage of exterior wall, this is how much we're saying for the home, and it should hopefully align with the US DOE home.
But with David, to answer your question, for the cost, no, that's up to you. The rules are going to kind of outline all of that. So take a look at the rules that'll be presented on the 22nd. And then within that, it's up to the proposer to give us the cost. The one thing cost wise that we will be producing, that will be part of it, will be standardized costs for the cost of energy. So depending on what kind of fuel is being used, whether it's electricity, gas, or bone-dry tons of biofuel, we're going to have that. Just like we've got the commercial posted on our page, we're going to do residential. And so that's the only cost that we're going to provide. You guys, the proposers, will provide their own costs in their own format.
Okay. And then thank you for that explanation, Mark and Kelly. And just to make sure I understand, but the costs that a proposer would propose, awesome, they'll be using the same square footage assumptions from one proposer to the next. But do the rules, and I guess I can wait and see, but do the rules spell out, and here's the at least the type of substantiation that you should explain your pricing is based off of, so that the review committee can say, oh, that 10 cents was based off of, builder interviews or actual bids or, some other thing.
So I put the rules in the chat there so you can read the rules and how that's all written out.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Yeah. And that's all the rules that are happening that day. It's a busy calendar. And then it's linked to the 3 p.m. one is the rules that are being put forward. So the answers to your questions should be in there. But if not, ask them next Wednesday. Ask further questions.
I have a question. I'm looking at the requirements on the DOE site, and I'm wondering the difference in the cold climates are a bit more. So, a lot of the rural areas are lower income, and I'm wondering how that's going to be accounted for within these specifications.
On the
from-
or?
So it's an equity question. Rural areas have a higher requirement to meet. So are we going to be showing that the energy savings is going to be the same or more as the mixed climate zone?
Oh, no, when I produce that document for the cost, it'll be a statewide average. So it'll be, a little bit higher for rural and a little bit lower for urban. But then the proposer, say, the cost of increasing going from R49 to R60, might be higher in a rural area versus a urban area. But again, we would hope it would be a statewide average. We wouldn't split them into two different ones.
Okay, and so as far as the energy savings goes, is it kind of the lifetime payback of that measure, or how are you weighting that when you're making that decision?
Well, there's a weighting. The weights are done by type of house, and there's 8 different types of homes. It's not based on location, and proposers can do a lifetime or life cycle assessment, or they can do straight across. We're not really we're not requiring that at this time. Obviously, life cycle is the best, but even the national. I'm on the National Modeling Code Committee, and for this, and they even punted on requiring that. There's spreadsheets and information. There's plenty of information out there that's been produced, but the subcommittee at least has left that open to a proposer as well. So we're basically following what the national IECC is doing.
Okay, thank you.
And Mark, is there opportunity on the 22nd when the rules are discussed for more clarification on these issues as well?
Just real quick. So the 22nd is for giving feedback only on that date. That's, we're at the last stages of the rulemaking. So this is the sort of additional public comment period where the division can take additional input from the public. So yes, but there won't be feedback from us. It's really taking testimony day is what the rulemaking hearing happens. That's what happens on the rulemaking hearing dates.
Got it. Okay. And by the way, David Hesselman had to leave for a board meeting, so he had to jump off. Angela, you have a question in the chat. Can you clarify that question?
Yeah, I apologize for this meeting. So the rules that were linked chat there, those rules for the hearing next week, looks like those rules are only energy efficiency code rules, not anything related to solar PV. Am I reading that correctly?
This is Mark Hayes with the division. Yes, this is, well, about adoption of energy efficiency measures within the residential building code. Yes, this is about that. Of course, when it comes to renewables, there's also the ability to comment, but I see that Kelly posted a little bit there, which does include, yes, the Chapter 11 does include the solar ready provisions that are required under Executive Order 1720 to show the updates that are in for that. When you see the posted new version, the new Chapter 11 will have the solar ready provisions that were in the residential reach code. So there was a lot of discussion, good input that went into that. We thank everybody for it. And so we are bringing in the more modified solar ready provisions from the 2021 residential reach code. Those provisions are being brought in to replace the current residential solar ready provisions. So they're getting expanded slightly.
That's great to hear. Thank you. So I didn't see those link that Kelly put there in the chat. Where can I find the new solar ready provisions?
They will be in the draft version that will be posted in when the 45-day period opens up, but was just letting people know that right now that yes, what was put into the residential reach code is what will be in the baseline residential code for solar ready. That's going to be the baseline, and that the residential reach code is available. You can look at those provisions, and if you're wanting to start on something right now, that is available. And Kelly put in the link to the residential reach code, excuse me.
Okay, and then you said when will they be posted? In 45 days?
No, it'll be posted either the 1st or I believe 5th of July with the notice. They may be up a little earlier, but when the notice goes out, the shall we say, baseline Chapter 11 will be available, and any revisions that want to be made should be made based on that posted Chapter 11.
Great.
Just one other thing. I don't know if anybody caught it. I posted it in the chat. The notice went out yesterday about having a, on the 13th, the RMSB is going to appoint a code review committee. And so they're, looking for applicants well, participants through an application. And so I posted the application process and just kind of the first part of the notice that went out. So if you got a notice about the rules, I mean, if you're on our list, then you've got a notice about participating as a code review committee person. And the code review committee will go from the 13th, well, around the 13th to, well, they're going to review the proposals that come in, and not just energy. They'll be reviewing everything that comes in, and probably through until the October, maybe November timeline.
Very good. Good announcement to get folks involved. All right, Mark, are you ready to go to the next slide? Talk about commercial?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go for the commercial code page. And this is really an update that, as a member of the 90.1 committee, they are wrapping up their last work, getting ready to publish 90.1 2022. Fingers crossed, they'll get the last little bits that are still working their way through their ANSI process to get into 90.1, the code review, or excuse me, standard review process. And there could be some really big items going in that are just coming right down to the wire. So once the published version comes out this fall, once it's published, and we see what is in the real book, we're going to begin our work seeing really what is included. And sometime hopefully within 6 months of the actual publication date, we're going to be working with the Construction Industry Energy Board to begin the adoption process for 90.1 2022 as the statewide energy code. Our intent is always to try and get within 1 year of, now that we're getting on track with the latest release dates, within 1 year publication, being ready to go, having it through most of the adoption process. The one issue this time that may be difficult is getting a working comm check. Right now, knowing that PNNL was just on call with them this afternoon about 90.1 may or may not be bringing in sort of an energy credits, additional measures type section, about 50 pages or more of information. Reed Hart and Mike Rosenberg, people that we're familiar with, are working on that, and hopefully they will have a working comm check at the 1 year point that could include, how to use the additional measures. That's one thing that may or may not delay a little bit of the adoption on 90.1, and of course it's going to be a much more complex book from what I've seen of what has been passed. There will be some modifications and improvements for simplified, simple buildings. That will make that relatively easy, but going to need to spend a lot of time developing some training and getting ready for that. So as soon as the book comes out, you may want to get your own copy to start looking through and seeing what is coming down the path here in the state. Again, we have to spend a lot of time at the division. We'll be prepping pretty much soon after it gets published, looking at what has to be done, of course, integration administratively to make it work with the building code, just like our current OEESC document that we have available now, what changes might have to be made to that. Again, re-reviewing Oregon's limited amendments. And of course, just making sure that everything that goes into 90.1 we can do here. There's some new stuff regarding air compressors that we'll have to really make sure we can work with that, since it is those are the authority of really the boiler and pressure vessel program. So different statutes, we have, a lot that we'll have to go through to make sure, that this can roll out cleanly there. And as we get closer to that date, after publication, be happy to come back maybe to this one and start discussing actual timeline and how people can be involved in with the SEEB and the adoption of 90.1 2022 as our baseline code.
Good update, Mark. Any questions for him?
Hi, Mark. This is Jim Edelson. How is the department division intending to address Executive Order 1720, which requires equivalent energy efficiency to ASHRAE 189.1?
Sure thing, Jim. ASHRAE 189.1 at the time of adoption was 189.1, actually 2014, but because of publication, we're considering that we would be equivalent to 189.1 2017, and we exceeded that with the adoption of 90.1 2019. So that portion of the executive order was accomplished.
Thank you. So that's your reading of the executive order. The most current version is 2014. Okay,
yeah, we can't base it on something that's coming out in the future. Those were our targets that we had set for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions for Mark? I'm hearing none, Mark, so let's move along. Commercial reach code.
All right, Roger, thanks again. So on the commercial reach code, progress update on this. Again, want to thank this group for the feedback from the last stakeholder meeting. We walked through that, came out with a draft for where the reach code was going to go based on the input that we received. We'd had discussions with the three proponents on the potential modifications or adoption or methodologies for the reach code. At the May 25th meeting that the division held, we received further feedback. There was a little bit of administrative cleanup. We showed some minor modifications to the proponents' methods to more have a cleanup in alignment with our with our use of 90.1 and sort of our state methodologies for doing energy modeling. Have not received any additional feedback. There was no opposition, so that is moving forward to the Construction Industry Energy Board meeting of June 21st. So if you'd like, you can provide additional feedback if you want to do something more than what was put out at the May 25th meeting. You can put in sign up for presenting to the Construction Industry Energy Board, just like any other board meeting. This will be an agenda item, so always available for additional feedback or comments or questions that people want to have. That is when the 2022 Oregon Commercial Reach Code will move forward. Potential changes based on feedback and actions from the Construction Industry Energy Board. Any questions?
Well, I don't hear any questions coming in, Mark, so That looks like it kind of wraps up our agenda. You can always reach out to us, either myself, Mark, Kelly, Blake, and ask any questions that may come up later. Here is the final slide of our daily message here. And just to note that we have a to be determined date of September 13th of this year for the next stakeholder panel meeting, and we'd like to invite you to that. If there are not any other questions or comments, I think it's time to wrap up. We'll give you a lot of your day back. Hearing
Thanks,
none.
Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.